How to deal with a really difficult boss. Now this is a tough one, and I'm sure we've all had relationships go wrong in our lives, and I'm sure you'll have in your life and your work relationships going wrong in the future. And I dare say the main cause of things going wrong and having difficult people around us is that lovely word called communication. We often just see things from a different perspective. So this can potentially be the number one cause of feeling your boss is difficult and the communication between you isn't particularly good. So in this video, let me show you how, with some great solutions, to deal with a very difficult boss. Now, as we said, in any communication, it's worth looking at the situation through other people's eyes. So before we start, it's worth thinking, what pressures are my bosses under or my manager under? What challenges are they being faced? What pressure are they getting from their directors and their bosses and other parts of the business, or even potentially clients or other stakeholders and shareholders. So do think about that, and perhaps sometimes our bosses, they're just not very good at communicating. They've perhaps been promoted to their position because they're technically good. So have a little bit of sympathy for them, but I do appreciate that doesn't, excuse them from certain behaviours. And I know that they should be good because they're the manager, they're the boss, but it doesn't always work like that. So it's worth considering that before we start. But if your boss is totally disrespectful, if they're rude and totally inappropriate, we will deal with that at the end of this video, because there are certain things that are not acceptable and you shouldn't accept them, and we will deal with that. But let's look at the other areas first. My favourite phrase, treat them like a client. Sometimes our clients we may consider as difficult, but they're going to go somewhere for their services or products or whatever it is that you supply or sell them or service them with. So treat them like a client. Make sure you understand, the good, the who, the what, the why, the when, the how and the where of what they need and how they need it. And also understand how they like their information, very detailed or very high level. Also with our managers, what's really important to them? Are they trying to just do a damn good job? Are they fighting off different pressures from around the business and from their managers? Are they on an ego trip? Are they sort of very politically motivated? Are they trying to just walk over everybody and improve their careers? And they're looking for advancement. So yeah, understanding how they want their information, but also understanding what's really important to them can get you on their levels. Or perhaps they're more concerned about their own work-life balance, or perhaps their home situations. And without delving into that too much, we can still find out a little bit more about our managers and what is it they really want and what's important to them, and therefore what do they want from us. So treat them like a client. Start to think, how well do I actually know my manager? And if not, okay, it's not going to be a short-term solution. It's going to take several weeks and months to build up these relationships. But that's what we need to work on. So with our managers, I think it's always important, there again, having good communication. It's a bit like at home. If you don't sit down and have dinner together and discuss things go wrong. We get misconceptions, we make the wrong assumptions, and we get annoyed with each other. So do with your manager always ask for one-to-one time. And even if they're very busy, explain to them why it's important. But if you do ask for one-to-one time and of reviews, appraisals, make sure you manage it well. Go well prepared. Make sure you have good examples of the things that you've been involved in, the things that you've achieved and the things you've done. Yeah, make sure that you know what you're good at and that you're delivering to the best of your abilities. Okay, so yeah, think about what things you have been done. Also have a list of outstanding tasks, what you're working on, what they're working on, what other people are working on, just to keep them up to date. Perhaps there's any issues and problems that are arising, but there again, always be there with some solutions. So you can start to get information out of your boss, which is going to make your job easier. And after a while, they will start to realise, actually, this improved levels of communication is really working well. And don't forget my 6 magic words: the who, the what, the where, the how, the why, and the when of what things need to be done. Have great questions to ask. So yeah, just before we finish the one-to-one, there's some questions I need to ask you with regards to who should be working on that in the future. What is the deadline for this proposal for the client? Gain clarification and manage the conversations in a positive manner. Always be that person of solutions. And make sure at the end of any one-to-ones and reviews and appraisals, you summarise the key actions. And you need to be taking away most of those key actions. Right, so based on what we've said, what I'm going to be working on before our next one-to-one in 2 weeks or a month's time, or whatever the time scales are, I'm going to be working on this, and this. And you said that you'd work on those 2 other subjects and get back to me by next Friday. Manage the situation. Your managers will actually appreciate this and think, I should be doing this better myself. So ask for this one-to-one time and make sure that you are very assertive in doing it. If they refuse, talk about the impact of not having the one-to-ones. That, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's expected of me. You haven't given me any feedback on how am I doing. How am I supposed to operate like this? Might give your manager something to think about. And there again, if you've got some other colleagues who feel the same way, perhaps a few of you need to sit down with your manager and say, look, we need better direction. We need better clarification. We're happy to be positive, proactive and make things happen, but we need to make sure that we're working in the right direction. So, perhaps a few of you need to have that conversation if they do point blankly refuse to give you one-to-one time. But I'll come back to that right at the end. As I said, if you feel our bosses are being totally inappropriate and, not behaving in the right way. And sometimes in these one-to-ones and different situations, you need to learn to give your manager feedback. Yes, you giving them feedback. Yeah, you should be asking for feedback, but what about giving them feedback? So before you launch into this and tell them everything that's wrong with them, have some very good examples. Don't say to them, I don't feel you communicate very well. Give them an example. I think you just ignore us every day and you just shut your door and just go off, or perhaps you're all working remotely and we don't have any team meetings. Provide good examples. Examples of what your manager has done, their behaviours, their actions. And there again, perhaps you've got to sit down with another colleague and write these out, but have some good examples of what they've done. Then once you've provided examples, you've got to discuss the impact. Well, you don't give me that information, so unfortunately I can't complete the report by month end. Because you haven't advised us of what we need to be working on, the clients, we've missed these deadlines with certain clients. So talk about the examples and then the impact of what they've done or what they haven't done, and what you'd prefer for the future. So in future, would it be possible for you to give me this on a Tuesday instead of always leaving it to Thursday afternoon? If you don't ask, you don't get. Be proactive. Be assertive in these situations. So here's 3 examples that you may like to use, and I'll give you 3 examples of giving feedback. The first one is, this morning you criticised me in our 10 o'clock meeting in front of everybody else. And you didn't give an example to the rest of the team with what had gone wrong, and you didn't give the context of why it went wrong. You just criticised and said, David hasn't done this, and let the whole team down again. So that's an example of what they've done. The impact is, I found this very embarrassing in front of everybody, and I actually felt it was totally unfair because you didn't give the context of the whole situation. So example, impact. So what I would prefer in future, if you do need to give me some feedback, I'm willing to accept it, but can we do it on a one-to-one basis, please? And by using that silence at the end, I bet 9 times out of 10, you'll get an apology. So it's very important you deliver that, examples, impact, what you'd prefer. So that's where they've criticised you in front of others. Next one is they haven't been giving you enough information. So I've had to go and present to some other managers in the business, and I found out that you'd already been working on a particular project without telling us as a team. Now, that's the the example of what they've done. Yeah, you've gone to a meeting and you're totally unprepared because all the other managers told you what your manager's already working on. The impact, there again, it made me look like we don't know what we're doing and we're totally disorganised, and it is quite difficult then to brief them and bring them up to date on what we're currently working on. So examples, impact. What I'd prefer is before I go to another senior managers meeting on your behalf, that you fully brief me on exactly everything that you're doing for them, so I can give them an update. There again, make sure you use that silence at the end. You'll get an apology, and you can then agree action, summarise it, and make sure it happens that the next time you get asked to go to a meeting, you can say to your manager, I've got the managers meeting that I'm representing you on next Tuesday. Please can we have a one-to-one on Monday morning so I'm fully up to date with what's happening. Yeah, just be assertive and deliver in a calm manner. The other one is, so the third example is, so 3 times in the meeting this morning, the 10 o'clock meeting, I was explaining something and you overtalked me. Yeah, you interrupted and carried on talking, and you didn't actually listen to what I was saying. There again, this is quite embarrassing. The impact of this is that I lose credibility and people just ask you questions about the work that I'm doing instead of me being able to answer for myself. So in future, please, if I am explaining some things, please let me finish. If you think there's something relevant to add on afterwards, that's fine, but please let me finish what I'm actually saying. Don't forget the silence. Okay, so yeah, sometimes we've got to give our boss feedback, and you'll be quite surprised that on the majority of our bosses will accept it. We feel they're difficult, but remember, they've got lots going on in their worlds. They're not as good as they should be on these things. Perhaps they're still learning, they're still developing. But with your feedback, it will help them to develop and improve as well. So it's great to see that you're still with me, and obviously you're very keen on developing your personal development and future-proofing yourself. So because of that, we've got an excellent download in the link box below that will help you to see how you can continue to develop. Now, whilst we feel that we've got these difficult situations at work, we've got to look after ourselves. And I think this is quite important about what are you getting from the job, and do you really want to stay in it? And it may be that, you know, you have got a difficult manager and it is quite challenging. And we're going to come on to some extreme situations in a moment. But if you feel that you're gaining experience, you're actually learning a lot, you're getting a lot of new opportunities, and actually it's a really good company to work for, and this is the type of profession that you want to develop and grow in, that sometimes we've just got to think, yeah, can I just accept some of these strange ways of my manager? But just learn to deal with them in an assertive way. And yeah, don't take these things personally. So if you are getting new experiences, learning lots, new opportunities, it's a great company, and you just love what you do, it's just your manager, sometimes you've got to put that into context, because naturally we don't get to choose who we work with and who we're managed by in our careers. And sometimes I've just got to think they're different to me, I've got to accept that. So that is worth thinking, that whilst you're still growing and developing, accept it. Or actually, the bad manager, plus I'm not learning, I'm not getting any new experiences, I'm not really developing with any new opportunities. Is the company that great? And do I really love what I do? Perhaps a few things are telling yourself to have another conversation with yourself. So as I said at the start of the video, that's all very well and good, but if your manager is just too toxic, they're disrespectful, they're rude, bad language, sexist or racist comments on a regular basis and actions, inappropriate behaviour and comments, and perhaps they just go against everything that the company's about and don't really sort of live and breathe the values, well, perhaps we need some unfortunate, more extreme action, and this should be the last resort. But it is important that you collect examples, dates, times, and going back to giving them feedback, examples of what they've done. What was said, how it was said, What were the actions? What were the behaviours? And keep a log. And perhaps you do need to have some other witnesses to this. I'm not asking you to go on a total witch hunt, but just if you've got other colleagues that have raised this and say, yeah, I feel the same way. Perhaps it is time to look up the grievance policy of your organisation and have perhaps a conversation with HR, could be off the record conversation, or another manager that you actually respect. You do not have to sit and suffer. And this is really quite important. If they're disrespectful, rude, bad language, sexist, racist comments and behaviours, this isn't acceptable. So it's really important that you just realise there is support, and every organisation will have a grievance policy. And talk to HR to start off with. Make sure you've got your log of examples, because there's nothing they can really do unless you've got some good examples. And also perhaps another senior manager that you respect, that you can have this conversation with. So these can be challenging conversations, but if you do deal with it, you'll become a better person. But please look at all those other techniques that I've talked about first. This should be the last resort, because hopefully your manager will go, oh, I really like that. Perhaps their awareness isn't as good as it should be. And perhaps they do need perhaps a little bit of a helping hand from you, the team, to actually improve. Because not all managers set out in their career to become a manager. It just sometimes happens that way. So most situations and relationships go wrong because of communication. If you can up yours, it's amazing what can actually be achieved. So be proactive with it. So thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.